Hey, good afternoon. Hey, let me take a rare afternoon moment here without the sound of a car going by or without the sound of a car that I'm in driving. That I take a different approach to this whole political scene and bring up the fact that if I had the chance to say to somebody or a group of Republicans and ask them sincerely, going, okay, I'll tell you what. If you care that much, convert me back. Because at one point I thought Republican. Okay? And where my allegiance stopped to a party was when the party stopped with the allegiance of the best person. Okay? The most intelligent, the most pivotal, the most that fit the party. When they went to ratings, when they went to who is going to be the most popular, they sold out the Republican concept. So, and that's where I would say, convert me back, explain to me, okay? Because even 10 years ago, before Trump was, and like what I said, I've said this before, hey, I've given Trump a shot. Not that I voted for him, but I've given him a shot. Okay, even the first time around. Hey, here's our president. You have to back him. Just like you're supposed to back any other party that is opposing. Okay? You're at work and all of a sudden your new boss comes on, you don't fucking automatically go in there blazing guns, so to speak. You don't go in there shooting your mouth off. You give them a fair shot. You find out what's going on. Not then you change jobs. You know? You got to work with the people. So, going back to this concept, I gave him a shot. And it kept getting worse and worse. And I never really factored in the age thing until this last thing around with Biden. And I'm looking at Trump and he's just the same age. But it still brought me back to the question that I have. Okay, if you're going to turn around and convert me back to being a Republican, you got to answer a couple questions. And that one, and the first one right off the top was what dropped me at the beginning. And that is, you can't tell me that Trump was the cream of the crop when it came down to the Republican values, when it came down to the Republican ideology, when it came down to the who's the best. Okay? For the principles and the mission statement that the Republicans used to wave as a flag, I'll say. You can't tell me that. And even then you have to factor in age and stuff like that when you're looking at a candidate. So whoever the powers that be sitting in the top of the RNC sitting on top of the Congress and all that, when names start flying around, you got to remember, the common person is dealt the hand and is not dealt the hand. They're shown a card. Okay? We don't really get to say who, technically. It's not a voting process. It says who. You can go caucus, you could do all those different things, but you know what? Ultimately, they're gonna push for the guy, and they will make sure that the media gets a hold of who they're leaning on and who they're thinking about, and they're going to make that person look good. Ultimately, the common person doesn't get that fucking choice, doesn't really get a big say in it, and that goes for both parties. So that being said, you can't tell me that out of all the most intelligent, most educated, most experienced people 10 years ago to rule and run a party, that Trump would have been the top of the list. There's no possible way. Somehow it came into the stupid ratings thing and the stupid popularity contest between him and Hillary that I was sickened by. Totally sickened by. And mind you, I didn't vote for Hillary either. I wrote a check. I went all the way up to the top. And then when I got to that top of that thing, I wrote a big cross right across the whole thing and said, none of these candidates get my vote. Hey, I'll turn around and own up to what I did. You know? Do I still have a say so? Goddamn right. This is America. I voted for everyone else up to that point. You know? And on that ballot, I voted to everyone except for the top seat. Because I was dismayed. And not disgruntled, dismayed. I was disappointed in the turn, in the way that America was playing it like an American Idol thing. And I was also disappointed in the way that the public bought into it. Literally bought into it. Like it was some lottery or American Idol contest thing. Ratings is what I call it. Based off of broadcasting and media. It's a popularity contest, like a Miss America pageant, or it isn't even based on how many hot dogs you can eat. At least that took talent. What was showing during that whole thing was just a bitch session, and both of them had major issues. Okay? And it was based on a popularity contest. There were so many more smarter people. And so many more equipped people to run. And yet somehow we went into this ditch. And that's kind of where I'll leave it. And say, if anybody could turn around and explain it to me, because I've tried to look at it. Okay? Coming from that side prior. There was plenty of people. I'm not going to be naming names. There was plenty of people that could have been nominated. But they went with Trump. Because of a popularity thing. Knowing damn well that it would be hard pressed to keep that ball rolling, even though he did get it, I admit, but years wise, and whatever. Okay? On the education levels and all that stuff, so many more smarter people. I don't care about rich. I know that everyone else does in that higher tier, and they sold it to the American public. If it came down to the spiritual end of things, which I was actually coming from, that's saying, oh, I came from the Republican, even though I was raised that way. I'm sorry. I looked at it and just went, my God, what has been done here? So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. And as long as I'm breathing and alive on this earth, every time an election comes up, I'm going to be asking the same question. And I don't go along party lines. I know everyone needs. There's the other part. They need to be a part of a club. They need to feel that part of a club. I don't mind it, but I don't necessarily have to fall in that to have a conviction. Okay? And that's where I'm at. I didn't get it. I didn't get what had happened. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this time around. It's a popularity thing. But people do not take in consideration the longevity of it, which ultimately is something that you would want to do if you want to keep your party around and in power for a while. They're not keeping in mind the inner workings and the damage control that has to be done with him. But, it's to be said. It's to be seen. That's what I wanted to say. I don't know what more to even say on it. We'll watch and see it unfold. And hopefully history doesn't bite us back. The way that things are going, the whole line of saying drain the swamp, and it still keeps coming up, or we're draining the swamp. I'm sorry. Be careful what you pray for. Because technically, a lot of people should have remembered that a lot of politicians across the board seemed snaky. So that means that both sides of the aisle are going to have issues. There was no draining of the swamp. There's vengeance right now. There's retaliation. But it's not a draining of the swamp. The procedures aren't being watched over to turn around and bring in Doge and say we're going to clean house. No, you start with anything coming up and coming. You don't go back through the books and say, what do we buy this for? Why are we involved in this? You don't go back through the books doing that. Those things were all ran through on the floor by parties, and it should have been exhaustively talked about already. But you don't cancel out departments and all that unless, and I keep this out, and none of this is conspiracy. It's just it couldn't be going on unless there's a bigger picture to this that they're not saying. If they truly believe, like some economists that are saying, the collapse that we're going to go through another big, huge collapse, then that means they're in there raking money. And Americans aren't realizing it. They're not in there. They may say they're in there to try to stop it, but technically they're looking at everywhere that they can be pulling money from for themselves, not to stop it. That's why they're rich and powerful. I hate to say it. Okay? It's just in a mindset. You know? There's something not being told in all this. We're being transparent. There's something that is not being told, if that's the case. I digress. I'm going off on a little end of this thing. But it still comes down to, you can't tell me that this was the best choice. I would like somebody to explain why they think that. Because if they start talking policy, well, they better have a bunch of really good examples with detail. And if they're talking about on a spiritual level, God's will, okay, then you better have a lot of backup there rather than saying just a leap of faith, because there's a lot of points that are bringing up about who he could be, and it's not a good thing. That's what I wanted to say tonight. And once again, nothing but love. We're all in this together, and we're only one country. We're outnumbered. Hell, we're outnumbered on our own landmass from top to bottom, 2-1. That's not even including Europe, Asia, and Africa, which were minuscule. And we think that we're flexing some kind of power. We are, for the most part, but that guiding light was of good, not of what's going on right now in the White House. Okay? We were that light on the hill. Were. That light is slowly dimming down to a candlelight with who's in office. But that's my 2 cents. Nothing but love. And happy winter still. Till next time.